the solicitor and philanthropist Lord Phillips has just returned from a trip to Gaza. He believes he's the most senior parliamentarian to have met the Hamas Prime Minister. Andrew Phillips is with us in the studio now. Your picture of Gaza presumably matches that of Mona Al-Farah. She was saying that there are revenge attacks and retaliation, that masked men are in the streets, and that children aren't able to go to school. It's the women and children who often lose out most in this situation.
Yes, it's a desperate situation, really desperate. I defy anybody who goes there, Gaza or indeed West Bank, and not to be profoundly depressed at what's happening there, and indeed our part indirectly in it. I mean, to just quote from the very recent UN Human Rights Commission report, they say, following Israel's withdrawal, Gaza has become a sealed-off, imprisoned, occupied territory, and that's too true.
So is there any way through it? Because you have Hamas and Fatah, both members of a unity government, so-called, which is paralysed, and the fighting between their two factions continues. If they were to call a halt to the fighting and meet the ceasefires, wouldn't that at least be a help?
Yes, but to be fair, both the President Abbas and the Prime Minister, Dr. Ismail Haniyeh, have both urged their respective factions, because Abbas is Fatah and Haniyeh Hamas, to lay down their arms. But to be honest, since the unity government started on the 15th of March, it's been boycotted by America, Israel, and I regret to say this country. They have no gains to show from the courageous attempt to reach a compromise, which is implicit in the unity government. Nothing to show for it at all. The economic boycott goes on. The poverty is appalling, 70% unemployment. The UN basically keeping the majority of the population from starvation. So that it's no surprise to me that this outbreak of violence has occurred.
Would international intervention, the raising of sanctions and embargoes, have the immediate effect, though, that's needed to stop the violence that's happening on the streets right now?
I mean, I wish I could say yes. I suspect that would be naive. But even at this 11th hour, for our government, to hell with the Americans, frankly, because they seem to me to be locked in the sort of benighted view of Israel-Palestine as they have been over Iraq. But even at this stage, for Europe and our government to release aid and to make clear, positive signs to Hamas, Haniyeh, Fatah and Abbas that the unity government is going to be supported in their hour of need, that I think would have some significant beneficial effect.
Gordon Brown has, of course, talked very recently in the last couple of days of his desire to help to sort out the Middle East and the problems, and he's been to this area. Do you have confidence that maybe he can bring the sort of change in our government that you're calling for?
Well, I do hope so, and I wish him well. It's a hugely difficult problem. I don't pretend otherwise, but one has to say that Mr. Blair has been not just disappointing but catastrophically ineffectual over the whole of this business. He promised when we went into Iraq that Iraq was one of twin pillars. The other pillar was Israel-Palestine. The roadmap has been a roadmap to nowhere. We have done absolutely nothing, and the despair within Palestine, the sense of betrayal that they feel towards us in particular, the double standards and hypocrisy that I think we're guilty of, and which, if I'm absolutely honest, I can share that sensation.
But just very briefly, it does take will on the ground as well between the fighting factions.
Of course it does. They know that, and I was impressed with Mr. Haniyeh. He's a moderate, he's doing his best, but he has no traction on that situation without legitimacy and some sign that the West takes him and his government seriously.
Andrew Phillips, thank you very much.